basically what I want to show you, like they redid work on this truck, and they redid the top panels and the floor, but look, they left the older ones here. I'm not entirely sure why, but you can see like there's the new one, and then you can see all that rust right here that they just painted over it. So when you see a car that's been painted before, and like kind of like this guy, they probably just painted over the dirt, it looks like. They use black so they can hide most of that stuff. So this is what happened here. You can tell that the interior floor was redone, but they just kind of went over the old stuff. Doesn't look like they really removed anything, because even in the front here, you can see a whole bunch of cracking right here. As you can tell right there. And it looks like they just put the new templates on top of there and welded it on. One of the other things George will definitely need is a new exhaust, because this bad boy seems to be tapping along over here. So I'm going to adjust this a little bit more for him until he decides what he wants to do. And we're going to adjust the right here, the vacuum on the transmission, see if we can get this baby to flow a little bit better. One of the other things we'll do, we're going to give it a little bit proper of alignment, just a little bit better, pulls a little bit to the right. We're going to get that sorted out today. This truck was serviced before. The diffs were serviced front and rear. One of the things that I do want to point out is these guys have these radius arms and they have these gaskets here. One of the things that my customer wanted to know is, will it return back? And what it does, it tends to travel too much, because as you can tell, the gasket's kind of coming out of this side already. So this is going to have to get serviced. Now you can find the parts, Ford Bronco parts, 4x4. They're not that expensive. It's just a little bit of work. So you know what you're doing underneath here, go ahead and do it. One of the things that we did, for the dampener, we added a spacer right back here so we can get it off this trailing arm that goes up. A couple things that looks like they did new tie rods and drag links and everything to it, which is cool. But this trailing arm here, you get a little closer, it looks like they welded it together, especially up here. So I'm not entirely sure what was going on here. It works. Maybe it's not the right curve or whatever it may be, but you can feel that it's kind of marred and welded up, causing a little bit of touch on the dampener shock. They also had this ran all the way forward, and you can tell it was just eating up right here at the front of the cover to the differential. We went ahead and lined it up a little bit. We're going to try and line it up just a little bit more, so we can bring this tire in. We're going to go for a test drive. We're going to put in a little tank to the secondary tank, which is, we'll walk back over this way. So the secondary tank is right here. It wasn't working. He also complained that he was getting a little bit of gas leaking out this guy back here, who was his primary. And you can tell it's a little wet here at the seal, but the truck doesn't move very often. It sits for a majority of the time when he drives it. But what we did find is that tank feeds this tank when this one's going low, and they never plug the top ports that run all the way that way. So we ran new fuel lines back to the secondary tank, and we gave power to the pump, which is working. We're just gonna go ahead and fill it up, see if we don't have any leaks in it. If we do, he's gonna, unfortunately, have to go get a new tank, but that'll have to wait. So that's on the agenda today. So let's get started. A little bit more in there. And then we gotta fire up the pump and see if it transfers gas over. I'm going to straighten out that line a little bit better, make it come underneath here. We'll go ahead and put a little clamp on there, but we're going to bring it around this way. It's a little bit better than what they had it. So a couple of things that we just recently noticed. When the truck came in, we drove it around, we felt a lot of the clanking, a lot of the banging. So what it had a really bad rag joint. As I'm going around right now, doing my final touch-up and trying to tighten up all my suspension work, I noticed that our leaf springs are dancing because they don't have any more. The rubber inside of here is kind of gone, as you can tell. So I hate to break the news to our good friend George, but it looks like we're going to have to get some new shackles here, because both left and right. And in here, you get a better look at it. You can see how it's dancing right in there. You can see that it's missing the bushing. So what that happens, gives you this kind of motion, and you see it moving. Now we can tell from right here, it's been banging in here for a little bit. So Mr. George may have to wait another day or two till I get some shackles, because it will need them. This is a safety issue. Once we put those on there, we should be okay. So I just saw that, which really sucks. But, you know, safety is a thing that we look forward here. We want him to enjoy it. We want him to drive it and be safe at the time too, if he wants to take his wife, his kids, or whatnot. So unfortunately, this is something that we're going to have to address ASAP. Alright, we got these buckled down, so I'll bring her down and go for a test drive. Let's see how she reacts. Her shift was really hard. It would like jump back, you know, and now it seems to have lightened up exponentially. We're gonna let him go through. Alright, we're back out of here. Taking our Bronco again for another little ride. It has little various issues that we still need to address that the owner will address in due time. For the time being.
Why was the ship jumpy when you first got it?
Well, the timing advance on the car was really forward. It was like, I think, in the 30s, which is like really weird. It's usually about, they recommend in between the 12 to 14 BTC for perfect timing for a mild cam. I'm not entirely sure what this thing has. I know it's got a 302. They pretty much just cleaned up some work to it. But all in all, it looks pretty stock. So we just set it back down to that. So every time you turn it on, the truck was really accelerated, and it would jump into gear real hard. So we timed it back, pulled it back a little bit, put it back to about 16, I think we're at right now. She feels a lot better. It's a little bit more calm. She's responding, but we were still having a problem with the shifting of the trans, because the trans still hitting the 45 mile per hour mark. It tends to drag out, and you can just hear it revving up. So what we're going to do, trying to see if we can get her to shift on her own. We found a couple things that were wrong. The vacuum line going down to the trans valve was completely pinched. Put two new little rubber hoses on there. We also, the adjustment screw for the kickdown lever was completely marred and mangled on the carburetor, so we went ahead and fixed that. Got a new set screw on there, and so it seems to be running a lot better. It doesn't thump like it used to, like it was a real hard, like real big back thump when you threw it on reverse, excuse me. And now it's actually a nice little mild thump. He knows he has issues with his trans, so we're trying to see if we can just get him, you know, to move along for a little while until he decides to change out the trans. Another issue that we're seeing, it drives really nice. My issue right now, that what I do feel those those radius arms bushings, they have a really big travel. So you can tell, like you see me going back and forth here. So you will need to eventually change those in the near future. Another thing that we just recently discovered as we were been test driving it the last couple of days, we noticed that when you take the sharp turn, you hear a click, and then like right there. So what that does, it kind of throws my rear end. It kind of makes it like jiggle out, like kind of feels like you're dog tracking. So going through it and making sure that we were about to go through the adjustments of the rear end, because it did add a lift to it. We noticed that the bushings on the shackles are completely worn, causing these springs and basically your whole rear end to feel like you're swirling around. So we're gonna get those almost nice smooth, trying to get her to come back by her own. I think that has a lot to do with the big tires. Seems like she's running good, but I'm still hearing that it revs up high, so I'm just trying to get a nice little open. Nice little better open road, so we can see if we can open her up. It's hard to do here in the city, but we'll manage. We just need to get her up to 45 to see how she does. As squirrely as she was. It's pretty hard to get her up to speed. Most definitely it feels like he's going to end up needing those radius arm links and everything, because it does have a little bit more travel than I'd like. It's not dangerous. I just can't get it up high enough in speed to see where we're at. The city's just brutal, as you can tell. Come on, Mr. Corvette. Mr. The radius turn on this thing sucks. It rained just enough to ruin everything, you know. Not bad. Can't be mad at that. test drive with it. Initially when she came in, you could smell a lot of fumes. It was driving really erratically, and just the overall, it was leaking oil from the valve cover. Alright. What we're also going to do, we're going to adjust his valves since we're in here, so we can get a nice, good running sound. And you can tell how much is out here running out through there. It's a good thing we got them better ones. So basically your typical cork valve cover gasket. That's what it looks like. And we went ahead and got some Perma Dry Plus. We're not using any silicone with these, and it's typically just like it's just a piece of metal, as you can tell right from in there and there, and then it's got a coating of rubber all over it. So it tells you cover side right there, so you know what side goes where, and ultimately just way better than your typical cork. So that's what we're going to put them on there. So, you know, these things tend to come loose every so often, so a good adjustment every so often. You have to do your valve covers. So we're just going to keep these on there real nice, like some good stuff. We had a bad radiator. The truck is decent, but it's got a lot of tiny details that a lot of people just kind of like at the end of it said whatever and just get rid of it. So that's what they did. We basically tightened up the manifolds. We tightened up the exhaust. We removed his steering shaft and removed the rag joint that they had welded to it. We carefully got that off of place and managed to save the rest of the steering wheel. Our '69 Bronco. So basically, what we did, we went ahead and removed the steering shaft. He was having really weird play with it. It was getting really squirrely on him. It dances a lot. We have to touch up on the suspension still. But what we did was basically take it apart, because I'm not entirely sure who the ingenious person was. What they did, they decided to use the original shaft, which is right here, and instead of upgrading it with a better U-joint like I did right here, they went ahead and used all the old stuff. So this is the old original flange that goes right here to hold on the rag joint. Had to cut that off just to make sure it got off. Didn't damage any of that. The previous shop, or whoever had touched this before, got one of these, and they thought it was a smart idea to weld this piece to the new U-joint, to the new shaft, and just weld it to the old rag joint setup. Obviously that doesn't work, because the rag joint was broken to begin with and nothing of it was actually functioning. They put it on there, and like I said, the owner was complaining about too much travel with his steering wheel. It wasn't responsive. It had just too much play. That being that because of the weld they did here, and then they welded the rag joint, and it should have been to the shaft. They should have done it properly, removed the old rag joint like I did here, and install the new shaft, which is what we're doing now. What we're also going to do, because they damaged, as you can see right there, they damaged the threading that goes here on the side. So what we're going to do, we're going to push this guy in all the way, and then we're going to drill a hole all the way through so we can bring the screw all the way nice and tight, get it nice and tight in here so this doesn't fall apart while he's driving. As we were able to start driving a little bit more, we adjusted the transmission valve, the trans valve, because it wasn't getting any air. We need to check to see if we're getting that 30 in there, PSI, and we also will need to adjust it from the kickdown. Still kind of holds a little bit on the 45 mark, going into the 50. It's not making that proper shift. We did the valve cover gaskets. We put new Permandyne gaskets on there so it don't leak. Looks like somebody changed out the valve covers, as you can see. We did just simple spark plugs, and we replaced it with a standard radiator 3-row, about 3 gallons of coolant. Once we drove it, we actually noticed that it kind of jiggles towards the rear end as you make a turn. It kind of bounces and it kind of clicks and bangs. Right now, going through it, we noticed that the shackles, the bushings inside the shackles are completely worn out, causing the leaf springs to move back and forth, which that's what gives us our rocking situation that we got going on. We're going to go ahead and button those up. This is just a quick update. We apologize for not having any more video, but we've been quite busy here. We'll be back to give you a little bit more as soon as we can. I want to thank everyone for watching. Thank you for subscribing on our YouTube, our Instagram, and our Facebook. Keep watching, and we hope to show you the end result of this guy. Thanks a lot, guys. You take care.